Time to play the game. Time to play the game!
Four Midwest Guys presents The Night's Watch, a Game of Thrones podcast.
Night gathers, and now my watch begins. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the shield that guards the realm of men.
We watch, we listen, and we remember. The past is already written, the ink is dry.
I thought he was the man to lead us through the long night. And I was wrong.
Show them what Lannisters are. What we do to our enemies. How do you know this?
That's what I do. I drink, and I know things. I believe men of talent have a part to play in the war to come. I will never set a ground.
You could help another climb those steps and take that seat.
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
They have no idea what's going to happen.
The real war is between the living and the dead. And make no mistake, the dead are coming.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Four Midwest Guys Presents The Night's Watch, a Game of Thrones podcast. I'm your host, B. Willie, and with me today, as always, Mr. Brian Ankenbauer.
Hey, what's up, what's up?
What's going on, B?
Not much, man.
Okay, today we're going to review Season 8, Episode 2, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. They were keeping it, the title under wraps, I guess, because it gave away a little too much of the episode last night, but we finally got a title, so here we are, and let's jump right into it. So we pick right up, back up. We're still in Winterfell, and there's a big old council hearing about Jaime Lannister being there, and why he's not there with the Lannister army.
Yeah. We talk, and it's whatchamacallit, Dany, talking about how the stories that her and her brother.
What they would do because
what
to the man to kill her father.
Yeah, and all this stuff, and it's just funny because Jaime's like, well, crap.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and then it goes over to
Sansa,
and Sansa says the same thing, like, well, he
can't be trusted.
He can't. He turned on our family and blah blah blah. And it's like, and then at that moment we think, oh, they're gonna be on the same side. They got a common enemy.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden we see
that
Brienne
stand up
and
vouches for him, and that's good enough for Sansa. So for a brief moment, Sansa and Dany have something to bitch about together, and then Brienne comes in, vouches for him, which is good enough for Sansa, and suddenly they're on the opposite sides again. And it's funny because even Dany's kind of looking for support even from Jon. She goes, well, what does the Warden of the North think? And we need every man we can get. Kind of.
Well, yeah. It was weird because once he found out that he was, the rightful
king,
that it kind of changed his whole tone with her.
Yeah, he's avoiding her at any
cost. So now, I mean, even at the end of this scene, he gets right up and walks away, and she's like, "What the hell?
What the hell's going on?"
Yeah, it was really odd. And you can feel that through the screen. It's really kind of cool the way they played it off, because you're like, well, that'd be really awkward, and it feels awkward when we're watching it. But yeah, I thought it was weird. She called him the Warden of the North.
Well, that's what he would be under her administration,
right?
Just like Ned was the Warden of the North under King Robert.
Right, but and it's one of those like, really,
her empire. I shouldn't say administration, but anyway. Same difference. So it's real interesting. Like I said, I really enjoyed the Sansa and Daenerys in this episode especially, and we'll get into more of that later. But we move on to they break away from it. She's pissed off as it is, and she's really pissed off at Tyrion. In fact, in the previous scene, she publicly chastised him pretty much.
For continuing making mistakes. And it's funny because it's the mistakes that he's making are regarding his sister. So I mean, it's his family that's doing it to him.
Right.
It's that whole trusting thing.
It's his heart against his head.
Yeah.
And so and that continues over to the next scene. They're kind of walking away in a hallway, and she's basically threatening to, he's no longer to be her hand, which usually means those you usually get executed. And Tyrion even kind of turns to Tormund or not Dorman, but Jonah.
Jorah.
Jeez. Jorah and the God, I can't think of anybody's name today. Jorah and Varys are behind him. And it's like, well, one of you will probably have this job before too long, because he's pretty much feeling the pressure from Dany,
right?
Pretty hard. Which is interesting for a scene that comes later. But again, it's really not his fault. It's his heart versus his brain, and that's where he's weak. But unfortunately, that's where she needs him to be the most clever, is against his own family. So, especially his sister, Cersei. So we get another scene between, I guess, Arya comes down demanding, well, not really demanding, but wondering where her new weapon is going to be, which we find out later is actually a double-edged spear, it looked like.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't a dart, it wasn't an arrow or anything like we were thinking, but actually some sort of like double-edged dragon.
Yeah, basically it was like a
we find that out later.
Like a lightsaber.
Yeah, double-edged lightsaber. Yeah, except it's dragon glass.
Yeah, with dragon glass. But I was going into that.
Yeah.
How would that affect the walkers? Because they don't turn to dust.
No, but it does kill them.
Okay, but still, like, even if she stabs, she had to spin that thing pretty fast in order to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess we'll see in the battle scene when it comes
I'm
to
trying
play.
to remember, because the last time we saw Dragon Glass used, I think, was when Sam killed the White Walker, and I can't remember if the White Walker just vanished to dust like the Valyrian Steel did, or
did he?
No, I have to go back and double check that. Actually, now that I think about it,
another one of the reasons why this show was so bad to be off for so long.
Yeah, because you lose track, and you're like, there's so many seasons to begin with, so many episodes, and every episode's so detailed, and then you take a big gap. It's kind of hard to remember sometimes, especially the little details. So he basically promises, all right, I'll get to work on, after she proves himself to him, essentially by throwing spear blades, dragon glass blades. She's deadly accurate. And he's like, all right, I'll get to work on it. And it's a little bit more sexual tension there between them as well. And then we cut to a scene of the Lannister brothers, Tyrion and Jaime, just kind of walking and talking amongst themselves at Winterfell. It's a nice little conversation between brothers and where they've been and the long, strange journey that they've been on. That they're obviously not welcome by anybody at this point.
Right, and they look up at one point, and the one guy spits at them.
Yeah,
and then. He says, "Well, I was tricked by Cersei," and then and Jaime says, "Well, I was tricked too," and he goes, "No, you knew what she was all the time. You're just in love with her."
Right, exactly. And so it's kind of a little tit for tat, and drives the point home that Jaime's not going to get any sympathy from anybody, not even his own brother, over that one. That's for sure. But so a little advice from Tyrion. And speaking of advice, the next scene is Jonah and Daenerys. And Jonah comes to Daenerys and surprisingly comes to the defense of Tyrion, which was interesting because those two have been rivals pretty much the entire show for the most part. But Jorah's being the bigger man and actually looking at the situation and making a better judgment call.
Well,
despite his own personal interests.
To be honest, I think that he thinks he's going to die.
Yeah.
Which is what I think. Okay. I think he thinks he's going to die.
Yeah.
So that way he's making preparations that everything is taken care of if he dies or when he dies. So he made sure that the queen keeps her hand.
Okay.
And then in kind of a later scene, I don't know if you put it in the notes or not.
Well, he sets up the Sansa meeting too, but
right. But yeah. when he's talking to who the little girl who's in charge,
Lady Mormont, yeah.
Yeah. When she's talking to her and he's like, you need to stay back. And she's like, no, I'm a fighter. And he's like,
you're the future of the house.
Right, yeah. You're the future of the house, and blah, blah, blah. And he's trying, you can tell he's trying to
make things right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't quite thought about that. So, yeah, he sets up, so in this scene, he basically vouches for Tyrion, saying he is the cleverest man that he's ever met. His mind is brilliant.
And he says everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes. And he points out, he said he makes mistakes, but he learns from his mistakes as well. So,
was that a stab at her?
A little bit. It was kind of a, well, you've made mistakes too, and you need to realize that as well, along the way. And it's kind of a growing moment. He's kind of playing the older mentor towards her here, even though he's been in love with her from pretty much almost day one when he was spying on her. he goes further and he says, I have one other thing. And then that leads into our next scene, which is Dany kind of goes before Sansa and asks to speak to her alone. And basically, Dany's going in there with everything that she will go in there with kind of like an olive branch or a piece. She's kind of offering peace. Let's break the tension. Let's
kind of
talk this over. Let's try to find some common ground.
Well, it's
to
more,
a point.
Yeah, I was like, it's more of a we have the same goal now.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I love Jon. You love Jon. We both know how Jon is. Kind of little girl talk going on. Trying to find that common ground, and which I'm also going to give Jorah credit here for, because I don't think she would have done this without Jorah's nudging, so to speak.
I don't think so. I think she would have let it build up because
too proud.
She's like, I'm the queen, so you better bow for me. Bow before me.
Right, taking that stance. But she does try, and they, for a moment, briefly, Sansa's smiling, and they're talking. Dany's got her hand on hers, and until Sansa brings up, well, what happens afterwards? Again, they're still bickering over what's going to happen if they survive. Not will they survive, but if they survive.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Sansa brings up, the North was taken from us. We took it back, and we said we never bowed to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen when the war's over? Like, well, I take the throne. And that's...
Yeah.
The ice coldness comes right back between them, and Daenerys takes away her hand, and they're interrupted, of course, before they can finish their conversation. But... because Theon's come back, but still, the tension's not really resolved. They may have found it's better than it was, maybe, but there's still that main thing, tension, that Dany's not going to let go of her. She's not going to let go of her power, quest for power, and Sansa's not going to let go for her quest for independence of the North, essentially.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Where do you think this goes? If they survive the long night.
Well, there's multiple things to play here. So you got Sansa thinking she's going to be the one in charge, but she doesn't know yet that Jon is
actually the
rightful king. Because I guarantee you that as soon as she finds out,
she's going to be lobbying big time.
Yeah. She'll back Jon 100% because he's family basically.
Right, and it means the independence for the North.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean. You can see where that part's going to play out as soon as she finds out. But does she find out? I don't think she's going to find out before the battle.
No, because this episode leads right up to the battle, and she doesn't know.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with it going forward.
Now, the one thing I do find interesting about some of these so far is the interaction. So us as fans they talked about in the director's thing at the end. But us as fans, we've watched all these things happen throughout all the shows. We know that so-and-so knows this person, and they know this person, but the other two people don't know that they know them. Right. And there's all those different webs, right?
Or that there's a connection between these
right, kind of like last episode between Samuel and Daenerys.
And Daenerys,
didn't realize that connection.
Separation.
We already knew that,
right?
But he didn't know that,
right?
And like this episode, it was the what's his name? Tyrion, not Tyrion. Greyjoy.
Theon.
Uh-huh. So we didn't know that. Like, says he knew the queen. Mm-hmm. And because with his sister,
but the queen didn't know that him and Sansa were really close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then so it caught her off guard when it's because he was talking to the queen,
right?
And he completely just bypassed her and went straight for Sansa, embraced and everything. It was like, and you could just see the queen like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it was kind of it's like
Yeah, and speaking of that scene, because Daenerys is pissed off because his sister didn't come back with him. Mm-hmm. She took her ships and she's back to the Iron Islands, which she wasn't happy about because that's not really her orders for her necessarily. So
even though it was in her best interest.
Even though it was in her best interest, still she didn't give the order. So she didn't like that. She's already mad. Next thing you know, Sansa's breaking down in tears and is hugging him, and she's like, she's the odd man out of place. She's completely out of place. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just going to sow seeds of doubt and seeds of conspiracy theory and all that.
Oh yeah, I 100% think
after this episode and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot of problems, a lot of issues to still get through between Sansa and Daenerys. But really great TV, great drama, great scene to be sure.
Oh yeah,
great couple of scenes really. So we kick back to Sir Davos' soup line, as I like to call it. It's kind of like an outdoor kitchen, and he's kind of serving soup to everybody, to the common man. Kind of cool to see, but there's a couple things that go on here, especially with the little girl who's looks like she's burnt on her face a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's scarring, and that reminds him of Stannis' daughter, who he was really close with,
right?
Who had the dragon scale on the side of her face, and you can tell. And she's like, I want to fight, and she's all gun-ho, and he doesn't know how to handle the situation because he's taken back by the remembrance of that girl. And it was just kind of a touching moment to him, because you can see they're dealing with, literally death staring them in the face, and he's having to deal with, all these emotions.
Right. And then what's her name? Gilly
is there.
She comes in and she's like, well, I'm going to be in the crypt with my son,
right?
And I would feel safer if you were there protecting me,
right?
If you were battling in the, to protect. Yeah. And then it makes the little girl feel like, well, yeah, I'll go to the crypt and I'll protect everybody.
Right. So it's little child psychology, right? Yeah. 101. But it drives the point home of what the severity that they're up against. The impossible situation that they face. Davos has seen it. He knows it. And he doesn't really know how to respond to the girl, because he's taken back by her look, number one, and then number two, the situation. It's grave. So it's just kind of a reminder of what you're up against. We go from there to Tormund and the rest of the crew there, the Castle Black crew. Was that Castle Black?
Yep.
Return, basically bearing the bad news that they rode around as quickly as they could around the army on horse, and that they're less than half a day away. Probably sometime during the night. By morning, they'll be there. They'll be facing the Night King's army. Which of course leads us to there's not much else that goes on there other than hugging. And it goes right into the war room scene. And this is where they lay out their strategy, and then you see the map, and you see the massive amounts of blocks that represent the Knight's army, and the few little piles that represent their armies, and you can visually see just by the map that they are severely outnumbered.
Yeah.
When it comes to the dead versus the living.
Right, and it also gives us the lay of the land outside of the area. So, I'm sure when we go to the battle scenes, we're going to be bouncing from several, because they have the left flank, right flank. Like, they have
the middle,
so they have a different area, and they're trying to corner a group and take them out. They're not just trying to attack them head on, because they know that
trying
won't
to
work.
slow them down.
Right. Yeah. So it is kind of cool to see the strategy play. It was kind of like a real life version of Risk.
Yeah. You see that
on the table. It's kind of neat.
Anytime they do a war room scene, I love it. That's just me, and it doesn't matter what movie it is, especially with the maps and stuff. But they come up with the strategy, and Bran basically offers himself up as a sacrifice, saying
his bait,
and saying, I know he's going to come for me. He's always been after me.
Is that the only reason why he's coming?
I think it's the only reason. Well, he's driving south to conquer the whole land.
Is he? Or is he just going for Bran?
I don't think so, because if that was the case, I would take Bran well.
You know what I mean? Like, because we just assume that the Night King and all the zombies and the dead they're coming over everybody. They're trying to take the whole land.
Yeah.
But is he really doing that, or is he just going for Bran? Like, if they were to take Bran back across the wall,
would he follow him?
Would he turn around and follow him?
I don't think so. I think Bran is target number one, like primary target.
Okay.
But I don't think he's like the goal. The goal is to.
So you think it could very well be, like we had talked about, it could very well be a prior house, like a former ruler who's coming back trying to regain control of the lands?
It could be, whether he was a Stark or an ancient Stark, or whatever. It could have
Targaryen.
some bearing. Bran makes it more like it's every three-eyed raven he's out to get, because they do the whole. Bran's like, I'm everybody's memory, because he can go back and see everything, and they say, what is death but to be forgotten? And they go that route with the whole looking at death scene. And from that perspective is why he's after Bran, or at least that's why Bran thinks he's after him. That's why.
Right, to erase
mankind's memory and to create the never-ending night. which is essentially everybody's a zombie floating around in the cold. So yeah, that's probably so Bran, because of these reasons, Bran's like, well, I'm going to go by the tree. We'll draw him in that way because, John says he made all these zombies. So if we take him out, pretty good chance all those zombies the power will be gone. If we cut off the head of the snake, so to speak.
Because that's what they realized, whatever episode that was. And they killed the one, and all the other ones.
Yeah, the general.
Yeah, and all the rest of them fell.
So he's thinking if we can get to the Night King, if we can take out the Night King, then we can end the war as quickly as possible and keep the casualties down.
Right.
So Bran is going to be the bait, and Theon bravely says he's going to protect him. So Theon continues his arc of redemption. From where everything that happened to him, from the time he took the castle to the time he got chopped off and was a lowly reek, and now he's becoming Theon Greyjoy again, noble man, despite him being a eunuch and whatnot. So we get the war strategy, we get the idea, we know what's coming, we know at least what they're gonna do. So. And then after that, it's pretty much from this point on, it's a series of meetings, and we'll go through each scene, but these are all kind of like men waiting to die, like the night before battle, like, people talking to each other, sitting down, talking to each other, kind of,
yeah, like
almost saying goodbye to each other.
Yeah, their last goodbyes.
Last day on Earth, kind of.
And everybody's dealing with it their own way.
Right. And the first part of that is, even though it's not shown, and I think this is key to the next episode, Tyrion decides he wants to hear everything about Bran, which I think is smart on Tyrion's part, because if Tyrion understands the mythology behind it, then maybe Tyrion can help be the one that steers the army in the right direction, because he's figured something out.
Right.
Through the mythology. So you don't hear that conversation or anything that happens, and they might be intentional because they might show it.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say we might show it later. And they say, it's like, well, it all started blah, blah, blah.
And Tyrion comes up with a master plan to save them. Yeah, which would be awesome, I think. I think that's why they don't show it to us either. But that does happen. A Wormwood, or Worm, it's not Wormwood, it's Worm. I think I'll just call him Worm. He's the Sully General the Sullied, and his girlfriend. They make plans. There's a little scene. She wants to go back to Nath, which is the beach in a tropical island. Yeah. And he said, "Well, I'll protect your people, and I'll take you home." So that's their big plan.
Yep.
Once the war's over, so their big hope to hold on to and to fight for. That's what they're fighting for. Sam and then they go up to the basically on top of the castle, and where the archers would stand. I can't think of the proper name for it. Anyway, they're up top, and it's John and Sam at first, and then their compadre from the Castle Black shows up as well, and basically they're the last three of the castle. What's left of Castle Black? They're the last three Watchmen left, and they're basically it's just Sam and John at first. Sam is just talking to John about, well, when are you going to tell her?
Right,
who you are,
and then he says, "Oh, you're just biding your," like he thinks he's got a big plan. He's like, "Oh, and you're just biding your time," and blah blah blah. And John's like, "No, I'm just."
Yeah, John's just like, "Yeah, sure, that's it."
Yeah. He's like, I don't really, because I still think back to what we talked about last episode. We talked about how Samwell was, you could tell he was still angry.
Yeah.
When he told John, and I think he's still in that same frame of mind.
Sure.
And so he's like, "Oh yeah. You're gonna get your revenge. You're just gonna wait and bide your time and blah blah blah." And I think
wait for the perfect time.
Yeah. I think that's what he's doing.
Yeah, and he is, and well, rightfully so. She killed his dad. She killed his brother. And even though he did have a great relationship with his dad, it's still family, right? And I would feel the same way, to be honest. And then I can't think of the third guy's name, but their friend from Castle Black, he shows up, and they just kind of do and now our watch begins, and they reminisce about where they've been and how they started at Castle Black, and it's just kind of again, kind of a way of dealing with the last goodbye, so to speak. And it's a nice little joke about how he's a woman's man, and how are you going to fight, Sam? Are you going to fight? Of course I'm going to fight. And, of course.
Oh yeah.
If you're a ladies' man and you're good with a sword, well, the world truly is coming to an end.
Yeah, yeah.
Ha ha ha.
Samuel, the
ladies' man.
Yeah, it was the lover of the ladies, and the slayer of the White Walkers.
Yeah. The world is truly coming to an end.
Yeah, if there were ever signs, how do we miss them? It's pretty funny.
So, which moves into kind of the beginning of a meeting of the knighting meeting starts. At least it starts off with just people. Starts off with Jaime and with Tyrion and Podrick and Brienne and eventually Sir Davos all gather around the fireplace inside the Great Hall of Winterfell, just trying to stay warm, drink some wine. I liked how in this scene, how especially Podrick and Brienne's like, "No, you're not drinking, Podrick. Are you crazy?"
and they're like, "Well, we might die tomorrow." And she's like, "Okay, half
a cup." And Tyrion fills it to the brim and gives it to him.
Yeah. And just starts laughing.
Which I thought was hilarious. It's kind of nice to see Podrick kind of grow into his own, because we all saw this, was it last episode?
When he was out, no, it was the beginning of this one.
Yeah.
When we saw him fighting.
Yeah, we saw him fighting, and you can see his skills have gotten a lot better. And Brienne's kind of proud of him, although she doesn't let on to Jaime about it.
Right.
We didn't go over that scene, actually. I forgot about that, but that's okay. Basically, all that happened in that scene is Jaime pledged himself to...
Right. He said he's not the same fighter he used to be. So he would like to fight under her command.
Under her command. So that's all that happened. That was towards the beginning of the episode, by the way. But getting back, so they just kind of gather around the fire and just start talking. Just kind of a little meeting. At least that's the start of the meeting, anyway. What I liked about the beginning of this, though, is Tormund shows up. And basically so you've got Jaime sitting here, Brienne's in the middle, and Tormund pulls up a chair across from him and gives him his big story about, well, I hear you're the king killer. Well, I am the Giantsbane. Do you want to know how I'm the Giantsbane? And he gives this big story about how he killed a giant and was suckled by his wife's tit for three months.
3 months.
Because she thought it was their baby. And that's why he's so big and manly and burly. While he's sitting there drinking something out of a horn.
Horn, yeah.
In a very Viking-esque manner. I found that pretty funny, actually.
Well, it was really funny because it was like, what kind of story? What are you trying to tell? Like that's not going to make her
want you anymore. But in his mind, he's trying to one up Jaime.
Yeah,
that's what it is all about, which I thought was hilarious. And the fact that makes it even funnier to me is the actor who plays Tormund is the one who came up with the idea that he should be wooning over Brienne Tarth in the first place. This isn't in the books or anything, so all this comedy is ad-lib, essentially.
Oh yeah, back to that when he first gets back there to the castle, and they embrace and everything else, and all of a sudden they pan to him and he goes, "Is the large woman here?"
Exactly. So this is all these scenes are being written now because of his suggestion. So, which I find that much more hilarious, being the little geek that I am. Moving on though, we end up back up on the top of top of the castle, and this time it's the Hound kind of sitting down. He's drinking by himself. Arya comes up to him. There's another little conversation between the two of them. She drinks with him, kind of deal.
She asks, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
He's like, "What do you mean?" She's like,
"Yep.
When was the last time you didn't fight for anybody but yourself?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "I fought for you, didn't I?"
Yeah.
And it was like, she's like, "Well, I guess you did." And then at that point, like you could tell, like it was like there was going to be some kind of like feeling that not togetherness, but like camaraderie that was getting ready to happen.
Yeah.
And then the other guy who came in, and
Sir.
The guy with the flaming sword
Guy. Yeah. Sir. Damn it, not Davos. Sir. Damn. Anyway. Yeah, he shows up, the guy with the eye patch and the flaming sword, who's been brought back to life 19 times.
Yeah, he gets ready to talk about. He gets ready to talk about it again. He goes, "If you don't want to talk about,
the priest isn't here, so
we're gonna if you can want to talk about it bringing you back a 19th time or 20th time, whatever.
A 19th time just for me to throw you off. the top of the castle for the 20th time.
And then Arya's like, "I'm not going to drink with you.
I'm not spending my last moments of my life with you two assholes." Essentially.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah. And then Arya makes her way back to Gentry, or Gentry finds her, I should say, as she's shooting arrows. And Gentry, that's when she gets her double-bladed
when he gives her the pole.
The pole. It looks like it's a double-bladed. Well, he does give her the pole, but that comes a little bit later. But yeah, so Arya, after she shows off her display with her spear and her Darth Maul techniques, she basically says, he asks him how many women he's been with, and finally gets 3 out of him, and basically she decides she wants to be the 4th because she doesn't want to die a virgin. And we actually get not full frontal nudity, but we get a little side nudity of her. So Arya becomes a woman in this episode. So
because everybody handles impending death a different way is the way the director.
Yeah, in their own ways.
So that's why we saw some people just, huddled together, and some people, laying together, and some people sleeping together, and some people just talking, and everybody deals with death their own way.
Their own way. So, valid point, because that's probably how it would go down. So, anyway, so as they're getting it on, we get back to our group of people by the fire, back with Brienne and Tormund and Jaime and Podrick and everybody, and Tyrion, and basically the conversation turns to how Brienne, did she ever want to be a knight? And she said she didn't because she can never be a knight because she's a woman. And Jaime,
Tormund says, "Well, why?" And she's like, "Tradition." He goes, "Fuck tradition."
Yeah. Which is, from his point of view, there is no tradition. Right. And then Jaime says, well, you don't need a king to make a knight. A knight can make a knight since he's a knight. Mm-hmm. He offers her knighthood, and she kneels before him. He pulls out her sword and does his...
He gave her the pole.
Or...
It knighted her.
And now she's a knight. Of course, she had a big smile on her face, so... good moment, I thought character development, it was cool.
Yeah.
She deserved to be a knight, especially the way she's fought throughout the entire series. So it was cool to see. Nice moment for everything. Mm-hmm. So overall. And then we switch over to we already talked about it, the Jonah and Lady Mormont scene. And then the second part of that scene is Sam shows up. And it's kind of a cool moment because there's a lot of connections between Jorah and Sam. Sam was trained by Jorah's dad, who was part of the Night Watch. He was the captain of the Night Watch. He's the one who trained him. Jorah was basically disowned by his family and kicked out, right? And that's why he was talking to Lady Mormont, because she's the rightful heir to the family and everything. And how Jorah's dad gave their family sword to Jon, and now Sam was giving, because he's not going to fight, because he can't really fight all that well, he decides to give Heartsbane his family sword to Jorah.
Since it's made from Valyrian
steel, and that he did it because his dad showed him how to be a man. And so that you have this kind of cool... just interconnection between the two, and Jorah says, I'll fight in his name and for his honor and whatnot. So it's a really cool kind of touching moment between the two, because of all the interconnections and the different things that happen between the two families, really just between the two men, and really the three of them. And it just kind of comes full circle, which is I wasn't expecting that. I really expected Sam to kind of hold on to the sword and fight his own way, with it. But I thought that was a really cool, super cool thing to do, really. So, and then we head back to the Great Hall again, and Podrick sings a song. Was it Jenny and the Ghosts of the Kings?
It was original.
Yeah, it was a King's. It came from one of the books, or at least the first line did, they said.
Yeah. Jenny danced in the tower with a ghost.
The Fallen Kings.
Yeah.
The Hall of the Fallen Kings. interesting song. They took the first line from the books, they added some more lyrics to it, and then put music to it. And so it was. It's another. It's not the Red Wedding, obviously the Rains of Castamere or anything like that. But it is. It was just kind of a cool little song, and I'm sure it has deeper meaning because I never read the book. So.
And it sounded a lot like the. To be honest, it sounded a lot like the stuff that we get to hear some of with the like the elves and stuff from Lord of the Rings.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Like with the lower, the monk-esque kind of song.
Right, monk-esque, very there's a word for it. Chanting, and very. It's like a guy with a mandolin could play the song too.
Yeah, and it was very storytelling.
Yeah, folk, the medieval folk music.
Yeah,
kind of. It tells an ancient tale back at the beginning, I think. Anyway, there's more story there, and if you're probably yelling at us if you read the books because you probably know a hell of a lot more about it than we do right now.
Right.
But it was just an interesting, and I'm sure there's a reason why that they had him singing at this point. It's probably kind of the same situation or something similar, I would think. And while Podrick's singing, they kind of go to it's almost like a, what do you call it, collage. What's the technical term when they... Montage, and they just kind of show different people. They show Theon and Sansa eating together and smiling together. They see you've got you show Arya in bed with Gendry. Gendry's asleep. Her eyes are wide open, obviously. And just show the different people around the castle doing their own thing and getting ready for battle,
right,
and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. And finally, after that, we move into the final, the big scene that's left, and that is Jon and Daenerys in the catacombs. I like this scene, Brian. I don't know if you want to take this one on there or not. Just basically, the whole the way he presented this, he knew she was going to come, I guess, because he was in front of his mother's.
His real mother,
Lyanna Stark, in front of her grave, essentially in the catacombs, her statue, and has candles lit, and obviously Dany comes up, and that's when he starts the whole story, and basically tells her that he is his real name.
Well, yeah, because when they're going through it, he says, "This is Lyanna." Is that what it is?
I thought it was Lyanna.
Lyanna Stark, Lyanna, whatever it is basically saying his mother. And that was my mother. And then she says, my brother raped her.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no. They were actually in love, and they married in secret, and blah, 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 and they had a child. And basically describing himself, and she's like, not following at first.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's like, and then gave him to Ned Stark, and she's like,
made Ned promise because
they knew Robert would kill him.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden she was like, he's like, and that's me, and my
real name is Aegon
Targaryen.
Yeah,
blah blah blah, and she's like, well, that would make you
the rightful heir.
Like the last. She didn't say rightful,
but
she said the last male heir
to the Targaryen throne.
To the Targaryen throne.
Yeah. And
she says, isn't it funny that your best friend and your brother told you?
Yeah, don't you find this a bit strange?
And that's where they leave it.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you hear the horns go off, and it's
time for battle.
They're here. The army has shown up. The long night is about to begin, essentially. And they pan to that, and they pan to like an entire row of his generals on horses.
Yep.
So it's going to be a heck of a battle that's coming, and I'm expecting the next episode. It's going to go like that, I think, because I think it's going to be nothing but action packed, and people saving people, watching people die.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of death. Mm-hmm. Some of our favorite characters are probably going to die in this one.
I think there's a chance we might lose half of them, honestly.
And I also think that this next episode might be actually longer.
Oh yeah, I expect this next one to probably be about an hour and a half.
Yeah,
like it's going to feel like it goes like that.
Yeah, Yeah, and obviously the way every episode is going to leave us wanting more. But
yeah, absolutely. All right, well that finishes our review of episode 2. Before we go, where can you find us on social media? Well, the best place to go is online. Go to the number 4 MidwestGuys.com. That's kind of like your one-stop shop for all of our podcasts. Not only you get your Game of Thrones podcast there, you'll also see we do a lot of Star Wars podcasting now. We've done some stuff, and we do a lot of like the big blockbuster movie reviews. There's one coming up. We've got Endgame coming up here, so we'll be reviewing that as well. You can see everything is in their chronological order if you go to the homepage, or you can click up top at little links for each individual podcast feed by itself. So one-stop shop, best place, number 4 MidwestGuys.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at 4MidwestGuys. Brian, where can they find you on Twitter?
At EnkZone.
You can find me on Twitter as well at bwilly1977. Also, behind-the-scenes pictures and things like that can be found at 4_Midwest_guys. It's a great place. We just put up a few pictures with swords and stuff like that from the last podcast, so you can reach us there. You can also find us on email, the number 4 MidwestGuys@gmail.com as well. So before we sign off, Brian, what's your final thought and grade for a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms?
I'm gonna go and give it the same as I did the first one, an A-.
Mm-hmm.
Again, no action,
right? But
no real but we did get the reveal to Daenerys of Jon being the king, like the rightful king. So I think that was it boosted up a little bit because you got that whole tension and everything else.
Yeah. And
then we did get the giant's milk, and there was a couple of funny parts.
There was.
So I mean, I would say probably A-, B+.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with my B+ as well from last time. This is just a lot of build up, right? This makes you're really getting in. You're seeing people for who they really are, right? Because they're facing death, they're facing a dire situation, and this episode just prepares you for that and shows you what they're up against, and now they're up against it. So this is the giant build up right before the battle, and I like that. I like the Daenerys Sansa summit, as I like to call it. Great scene there, a lot of good drama there, a lot of good interaction, and obviously the Jon and Daenerys in the catacombs and the reveal that he's Aegon Targaryen. Also,
but the anticipation is over.
Yeah, for the long night and winter is finally here. So this is what we've been waiting for since we first saw the White Walkers, and this is it. So get ready, strap yourselves in, and because I can't wait for next Sunday. If you're one of those people that like to get the stuff that leaks online, don't do it. Don't spoil it for yourself. Just wait till Sunday. There's no need for that. I don't want to spoil it for myself, because you never know what you get online. People might take scenes out, might cut things. You're gonna lose the experience. Just wait till it comes out. See it on Sunday like the rest of us. Enjoy it. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for. What's a couple more days? We've been waiting for this for almost 10 years, really, when you think about the time in between episodes and stuff. So what's another few days? Anyway, Brian, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yep, and this is B. Willie saying, as always, remember that the night is long, and that the night is full of terrors. We'll catch you next time.